everyone, Mr. Larkham here with Polly. Say hello, Polly.
Hello.
Look at the camera and say hello.
Hello.
Maybe wave as well.
I want to wave. Hello. I've got holes in my trousers.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll maybe try and fix those later. Today's assembly is all about... What's it about? One of your favourite things. Here's a clue.
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. But you want to have some dinosaurs, don't you?
Yeah.
Should we get some dinosaurs in your hands? Hold your hands out like this. Ready?
Wow.
Who is it?
Bracky and Bracky's brother.
Amazing. And what kind of dinosaur are Bracky and Bracky's brother?
Brachiosaurus.
Brachiosaurus is excellent. Right, well, today's story is called Tyrannosaurus Drip. And it's one of our favourites, isn't it, Polly?
Yeah.
And it's got this dinosaur in. What
Yeah.
kind of dinosaur is that?
Parasaurolophus.
A Parasaurolophus. Where should we put that? Should we put... Do you want to have him on your knee?
Yeah.
Yep. And
Back.
and it's got a Tyrannosaurus Rex as well, hasn't it? Well, a whole family of them. Is that going to sit on your lap as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Right. So we've got our dinosaur story, and we'll have a dinosaur song at the end as well. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Should we go? Cool. Right. In a swamp beside a river, where the land was thick with veg, lived a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs who roamed the water's edge. That's a duck-billed dinosaur, isn't it? Parasaurolophus. And they hooted up with rivers, and they hooted up with reeds, and they hooted...
Up with bellyfuls of juicy water weeds.
Now across the rushy river on a hill the other side lived a mean Tyrannosaurus with his grim and grisly bride, and they shouted up with hunting, and they shouted up with war, and they shouted
Up with bellyfuls
of duck-billed dinosaur. But the two Tyrannosauruses, so grisly, mean and grim, couldn't catch the duck-billed dinosaurs because they couldn't swim, and they muttered down with water, and they muttered down with wet, and they muttered what a shame that bridges haven't been invented yet. They don't look very nice, do they?
No.
No. Now a little Compsognathus, but for short we'll call her Comp, found a duckbill egg and stole it from a nest beside the swamp, and she swam with it and ran with it and murmured, "Clever me! And won't the baby Comps be thrilled with duck-billed egg for tea?" Uh-oh. She dropped the egg in terror and went running for her life from the mean Tyrannosaurus and his grim and grisly wife. And the duckbill egg went rolling, and at last it came to rest in all of unlikely places, the Tyrannosaurus nest. Oh dear. Now the mother T had great big jaws and great enormous legs, but her brain was rather little, and she couldn't count her eggs, and she sang, "Hatch out, my terrors, with your scaly little tails, and your spiky little toothies, and your scary little nails." Out hatched babies 1 and 2, as perfect as could be, but Mother T was horrified by baby number 3, and she grumbled, "He looks weedy," and she grumbled, "He looks weak," and she grumbled, "What long arms, and look, his mouth is like a beak." "He just needs feeding up," said Dad, and gave the babe some meat. The first 2 gulped and guzzled, but the third refused to eat. And he said, "I'm really sorry," and he said, "I simply can't," and he said, "This meat looks horrible, I'd rather eat a plant." I think there's a mistake in the nest. "A plant?" yelled Mum in horror, and Dad said, "Get a grip." His sisters found a name for him.
Tyrannosaurus Drip. What are those green things?
Green things? I think those green things there are other dinosaurs, I think. And they shouted, "Up with hunting," and they shouted, "Up with..."
Whoa.
And they shouted,
Up with bellyfuls of juicy dinosaur.
"Duck-billed dinosaur." Poor Tyrannosaurus Drip tried hard to sing along, but the others yelled, "You silly Drip, you've got the words all wrong." For he hooted down with hunting, and he hooted down with war, and he hooted down with bellyfuls of...
Duck-billed dinosaur.
Exactly. Drip's sisters grew big enough to hunt with Dad and Mum, but they turned on Drip and told him, "You're not fierce enough to come." And he cried, "They've gone without me." and he cried, "Alackaday!" And he cried, "This doesn't feel like home. I'm going to run away." Poor Drip. Oh, do you feel sorry for Drip?
Yeah.
Why do you feel sorry for Drip?
Because he can't go hunting with them.
They're mean, aren't they? So he ran off to the river where he saw a lovely sight. A herd of duck-billed dinosaurs all hooting with delight. And they hooted, "Up with rivers!" And they hooted, "Up with weeds!" And they hooted, "Up with bellyfuls of juicy..."
Waterweed.
There they are, look, he's found lots of dinosaurs who look just like him. And as he stood there on the bank, a sudden urge took hold of him, and he jumped into the water and discovered he could swim. And the duckbills came to greet him by the rushy river's edge, and they hooted, "Nice to see you!" And they hooted, "Have some veg!" And Drip, who was delighted that they hadn't run away, ate bellyfuls of waterweeds and played with them all day. And then he gazed into the river and he asked them, "Who, oh who, is that creature in the water?" And they laughed and said, "It's you." And that night the lightning crackled and a storm blew down a tree, and it fell across the river, and the tea cried out, "Yippee!" And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur."
Daddy, look, like he's standing on only 2 legs, and like his brother standing on 2 legs on cliffs with the water out the bottom.
They need to be careful, don't they? Drip's sisters stepped onto the bridge, but then began to frown, for there in front of them stood Drip, who yelled, "Look out! Look down!" And they looked into the water, and they each let out a yelp, and one cried, "Water monsters!" and the other cried out, "Help!" You've seen their reflections, haven't they? Their mother said, "Nonsense!" and she joined them on the tree, and then she looked into the water and exclaimed, "Goodness gracious me!" The 3 of them stood trembling, and Dad said, "Get a grip! You're all of you as drippy as Tyrannosaurus Drip." He strode onto the bridge and scoffed, "I bet there's nothing there." And then he looked into the water, and he jumped into the air. Looks like he's frightened too. And how the duckbills hooted when he landed with a crash, and the tree bridge broke, and 4 Tyrannosauruses went
Splash.
splash into the water. And spluttering and clinging to the branches of the tree, they went whooshing down a waterfall and all the way to sea.
Do you think they're going to go to the city?
I think so. Not for fun, though. And the duckbills hooted happily. They hooted, "Hip, hip, hip! Hooray for the heroic one and only duckbill Drip." Lovely. What an awesome story. I like that. Really, really good message in that story, because it's all about just being nice to each other. Poor old duckbill Drip ended up in a nest with the Tyrannosauruses, and it was very, very different to them, and he didn't try to pretend to be something he wasn't, did he? He was exactly who he was and who he should be. And the other dinosaurs, the T-Rexes, were really, really unkind to him because he was different. And that's something that we all need to think about, especially at the moment. We shouldn't be unkind to anyone, really, but we especially shouldn't be kind to anyone just because they are different to us, because they look different to us, because they act different to us, and in this case, if they just eat different things. And duckbill Drip, he was a very kind dinosaur, and he tried to get on with them, but the Tyrannosauruses wouldn't have any of it. So we need to make sure that when we live in a world like we do, with lots of different people, because everyone's different, we need to be able to get along with each other and get along properly. So that's the message from that story, and I hope that all of you at home can try and live your lives like that. So, what do we need to do next? What happens next in our assemblies? I think we should do our song. Should we do our song now?
Yeah.
Yes, right. I haven't got my ukulele again. Who's going to do the magic? Is it going to be me, or is it going to be you?
You.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Daddy, we've gone invisible.
Invisible?
Yeah.
But I can see you. Do you think they can see us at home?
No.
Tell you what, you clap your hands and we'll come back. Oh, it didn't work. Do it again. Harder. Oh. Wow. Good magic. We've managed to find the ukulele whilst we were invisible. So we're going to do our dinosaur song. Are you ready?
Wait, I'm not actually going to do it.
Okay, so for our song, there are some actions which Polly is going to demonstrate for us. So when we say dinosaurs big as trees, what's the action? And then dinosaurs brains like peas, jaws and claws, and teeth and bone. Excellent. You ready?
Yeah.
You going to sing and do the actions?
Yeah.
Excellent, here we go.
And I remember the words.
They used to walk, they didn't swim, they didn't fly with a toothy grin. Some ate plants and some ate meat, some walked around on just 2 feet. Oh, the dinosaurs, big as trees, dinosaurs, brains like peas, jaws and claws and teeth and bone, that used to growl and groan and moan. Rah! You can do the actions next. Some had feathers and some had scales, spikes and clubs and whip-like tails. They fought like dragons, the earth sure shook. Oh, the dinosaurs, big as trees, dinosaurs, brains like peas, jaws and claws and teeth and bone, that used to growl and groan and moan. That's not a very loud roar. Rah! Tyrannosaurus Rex was a terrible king. Stegosaurus' tail could really swing. Brachiosaurus likes to stomp, and Stracodon would chew and chomp. Oh, the dinosaurs, dinosaurs, jaws and claws and teeth and bone, they used to growl and groan and moan. Big roll. They roamed the earth 100 million years without worries, cares or fears. Then one day they hit the soil, and now they're
Fossils, gas and oil.
oh, the dinosaurs, big as trees, dinosaurs,
Brains like peas.
jaws and claws and
They used to growl and groan and moan.
last time. Oh, the dinosaurs, big as trees, dinosaurs, brains like peas, jaws and claws and teeth and bone, that used to growl.
And groan and moan. Now let's fix that dinosaur.
Oh yes, we have to fix our dinosaur because we've been in the garden all day and the glue's melted in the sunshine and poor Mr. Dinosaur is in 2 bits. We shall fix it. Take that inside and we'll find the glue. Off you go. Go, go, quick, we'll fix him. Bye for now, have a lovely week, see you soon.
Bye.